next speaker, someone who has some real-life experience in space programs, Colonel Mike Wasson is AGI's Senior Director for Department of Defense, Space Operations Business Development. He's got over 30 years of space operations experience within the Air Force, the U.S. Air Force, civil service, and commercial sectors. Sounds very much like one of our characters from the show, Fred Johnson. Just all I'll say to you, Colonel Wasson, is stay away from the protomolecule, wherever you might be. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome to the stage Mike Wasson.
Thank you. Hi, welcome. So I realized when I saw the program that I get the advantage of speaking about whatever I want because the title of my presentation didn't make it. But what I came up here to talk about today is organizational culture and secrets to your success. Why, you might be wondering, am I speaking about organizational culture? Well, 27 years in the U.S. Air Force, the structure is pretty well defined. You know, the rules are put in place. You know what success and failure means. The military has an up or out culture, meaning that if you do well in your current job, your current rank, your current position, then you have the opportunity to advance. And those that don't are quickly shown the door and they have to go find another career. So in order to make it 27 years in the Air Force, you have to understand what the rules are. You got to know what the secrets of success are in that organization. You have to know who the influencers are. And you have to know what are the steps that you need to take in order to move to that next level of responsibility. I can remember when I came into the Air Force, this was a long time ago, as a young lieutenant, we all came in and we were assembling in the first unit in the orderly room there. And it was interesting how they did job assignments back then. You'd think there would have been some structure, but this was in the early days of Air Force standing up a space program. And we ended up in a new unit. We were going to do orbit analysis and command and control for a group of satellites that you may have heard of, GPS. At that time, they hadn't even launched the first operational GPS satellites that you're so familiar with today. There was another program called the Defense Space Program that does missile warning, early warning, and another one called DMSP, which is a meteorological satellite. Well, I went into undergraduate space training, 4.5 months. They give you all of the ins and outs of what to do, physics and orbital mechanics and math and space policy and acquisitions. And then we showed up at our first unit, me and a couple of my classmates, and one of the leaders in the organization said, "What was your degree?" My friend says, "Well, it was math, but I was liberal arts math," whatever that means. He said, "Okay, you're gonna be a planner analyst." Another friend of mine said, "Well, I'm an English major." He said, "Oh, you're gonna be a ground controller." And he asked me and he said, "What was your degree?" I said, "I was a math major." And he said, "Okay, you're gonna be an orbital analyst." So it was just that complicated where we got placed initially. So not a lot of structure. But in that realm, you have to then find out what are the measures of success. And for me, at that point, it was training and education and sharing information. In those days, there had been a lot of old gray-beard civilians, probably I am one now, that had been flying satellites. They worked for manufacturing companies, the people that built the satellites, and they were our mentors that came in. And we as young officers in the organization had to try and extract and learn as much as we could from them. And so I just remember sitting down next to a guy named Lloyd, and we'd get on the computer, and I'd go through every screen, and I'd say, "Lloyd, what does this thing do?" And he'd explain it, and I'd write it down. So that was how I found a way to take my skill set and apply it in that military culture. We have a lot of great education opportunities in the military. I was told by my commander at the time not to go to a master's program full-time, that I should do it at night like everybody else, because if I went to a master's program full-time, that I'd be losing ground against my peers because I was going to school full-time and I wasn't in an operational job. So that cultural aspect of the Air Force at the time was a little bit disturbing to me because I felt that if they were going to invest in my education, I should be able to do that full-time. So I did. But that kind of threw me off of a track that you had to then scramble and get back onto what they considered the right track in order to meet those criteria for promotion. And so my group of lieutenants, when we came in together, I just remember we were always trying to find out what were those secrets to success. How do we advance? How are we going to make it as a squadron commander someday? And we were always asking, what's the magic formula? Do we do satellite command and control? Do we stay in that our whole career? Do we go into launch operations? Do we go into missile warning? Do we track satellites in space surveillance? What is the secret? How do you determine what that is? Well, anyway, to kind of jump to the end, I was able to figure that out. You find that those that survive 25 plus years in the military, they've figured that out. They know what the rules are. They know what the criteria for success are. They know how to get rewarded. They know how to shape and influence folks. So I realized about halfway through my career that I could no longer just expect that everybody else knew what those success criteria were in that organization, and had to transition then into more of a teacher kind of a role. I spent a lot of time in the last half of my career bringing in young professionals like you, and every time we had a new person in the organization, I would bring them in, sit them down in the office for 30 minutes, and I'd basically say, these are what your expectations are. And what I found was that from when I was a young lieutenant, and by the way, when I came in, the unit I was in had about 150 people. 135 of the 150 were officers. We were all lieutenants, captains, and probably over 90% had technical degrees, engineering degrees. When I was a leader later on, 20 years later, and I came back, the demographic had completely changed. We were no longer technical, and people didn't know what it meant to succeed. And so what I tried to do is communicate to all of the young people that ever came to the organization that it's okay to fail. You need to take chances, and you need to find some way to not only influence and do what you do in your current job, but you need to find a way to influence your peers. I had an Army major working for me for a while, and he was doing everything by the book and was frustrated that he wasn't advancing as far as he had hoped. And that was the conversation I had with him, is that you need to find a way not only to do what you're doing, but find out what the rest of the organization is doing, and find a way to impact and influence in a positive way what the rest of the organization is doing for the larger goals. Okay, so that's 27 years in a very structured, highly disciplined, orders-based community where you don't have to think a lot about what your opportunities are because they're going to be given to you. So now I'm retiring, transitioning, and got to head out into the commercial marketplace. And that's really the nature of this, is now how does one transition from that highly structured culture of the military to now what I would tell you my perception is of a commercial culture. And that's a challenging thing. Now the Air Force does a really nice thing, well the whole military does a nice thing, in that for long in the tooth folks that have been in the military, they have a program called the Transition Assistance Program. And they teach you a lot of things. How to do your retirement, what are your finances like, what is your medical care going to look like, how do you dress for success? And I'm not kidding, they'll bring in people and they'll test your wardrobe and all those things. But the one thing that they didn't really do was talk about culture. How do you find the organization that best suits you from a cultural aspect? I mean, how do you know what to do, where to go? And I equate that to a lot of folks that are coming out of college today. It's like you've got so many options available to you. How do you know what to do? I heard a stat one time that said folks that retire from the military in their first 5 years will change jobs 3 to 5 times. And that's because they're searching for the culture, right? We don't have in the military to spend a lot of time thinking about what we value, what our preferences are, because we're told what those are. So what I would encourage you to do is find out those things, do some self-examination, and think about, what do I value? I can tell you, me personally, what I have always enjoyed is kind kind of the, not to be presumptuous here, but to be big fish in a small pond. I like working for a small company where I know people by first name, they know me by first name. I didn't want to be, it's kind of ironic, having been in the Air Force, I didn't want to be lost in a large organization and be anonymous, right? I had enough of that, so I wanted to find the culture that met my personality and what I valued. I can walk into my company any day today, and my CEO will see me, and he says, Mike, it's great to see you. Get on my calendar, let's go talk. And that can be 30 minutes, could be 3 hours. That's what I value. So look at what you prefer and what your characteristics are. I can tell you that in the commercial world, for me, the cultural differences I see in the military are very hierarchical. I know who works for whom. I know what the rules are. But in the commercial world, and in my limited experience in the commercial world, which is going on 5 years now, is it's much more fluid. The structure is not as well defined. It's wide open. And so in that, there is both challenge and opportunity. The challenge is you aren't really sure what your contribution will be in that culture, but the opportunity is you can define it. You can set the criteria for success. So what I've found, and one of the main points of advice I have given over the years to my young professionals is be an expert in something. I had a boss in the midpoint of my career that gave me that advice, and it really resonated with me because there are so many different things you can focus on. Well, I mean, where do you even start? And so for me, being an expert in something established you as a go-to person for whatever that topic is. Right? The rest of the organization will find out that you are the person who has more knowledge and information about that particular aspect of the business, then you become the go-to person for that. And then folks will start to rally around you, and you will start to build a team inside your company and your organizational culture. That gives you an opportunity then to start influencing others in a bigger way. So find your ways to influence and be an expert in something. The other thing that's important for culture, especially in the commercial industry, is know when to lead and know when to follow. I find that it's really easy for a lot of folks to be anonymous again and be a follower, but you have to find the opportunity when the door opens. Sometimes you've got to push through. And that's the advice I was giving to my folks that were looking for ways to be better in an organization. I said, you know, it doesn't necessarily even have to be in your particular job assignment in the moment, but it's important that when the door opens for opportunity that you grab it and you own it and you take advantage of that. Because what you'll find in the commercial culture of an organization today is people are going to be willing to let you do that. Because what you're finding today in this diverse community with so many topics that you don't have big teams that are all focused on a similar problem. What you're more likely to see is a particular specialty, and and your company is going to be 1 or 2 deep in that specialty. And so what I have found in these last 5 years is that when you grab something and take ownership of that opportunity, most likely people are going to rally around and let you do it because they don't have the time or the motivation to do it at that particular time. So that's another aspect of culture that I think you can pick up. And then know what your reward system is. So it doesn't always have to be about rewards for you in your organization, but it's awfully nice when you know what those rewards are. And when somebody randomly will recognize you. My reward system today, I'll tell you, is my boss is sitting over here, and I told him I don't like speaking in public. So he said, congratulations, you're speaking in public. So that's my reward system. So, but he knew that having this unique perspective of both the military and the commercial culture was something that is a little bit more rare and hopefully somewhat valuable to you guys here today. Another part of my culture, old note cards. The other thing I would say, just kind of wrap things up here a little bit, is you get to be, when you are the expert in whatever that topic is, you get to be the interpreter. And by that, what I mean is not many people are going to be as conversant in that topic as you. I find myself playing the role of interpreter quite a bit, actually. Mostly it's between military and civilian culture because even though my company has been working with the Department of Defense for over 30 years, I find that they don't understand the language correctly, and they say things in a way that doesn't resonate. And so you have to be that person that speaks up and says, hey, this is my project, and this is my customer, and this is how they communicate, and this is how we should communicate to them. So play the role of interpreter. Who else are the influencers in your organization? That'll make a difference. In today's culture, especially in the civilian culture, everybody's matrixed into another project, and it's up to you to figure out where the expertise lies so you can bring that and pull that into your team and your mission. And then what I'll leave you with today, and I do appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, is don't be shy about shedding a job or a position that doesn't match your style. You know, find the one that best suits your skill set, because that's where you're going to be the most effective. If you are in a position that is rote and routine and really you're not jazzed about getting up every day and going to do that, then it's time to move on and find something that matches your style. It's okay in today's world to admit that the culture you're in the moment may not be the culture you need for the long term, and that evolves. So, you know, what I guess the takeaway from this short presentation is do a lot of internal reflection and self-examination. Find the spot that best suits you and your skill set, and then just make a difference and grab things and take ownership. So thanks for the time today, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.